We've talked about the blueprint of the Constitution, but now we're looking at the safety features or the Do Not Disturb list. The Bill of Rights is the first 10 changes or amendments, and they were added almost immediately, in 1791. They are the most famous and most important part of the Constitution for your daily life. Think of it this way. The Constitution is the government's rule book, but the Bill of Rights is your rule book for the government. It doesn't give you permission to do things. It tells the government all the things it cannot do to you. These protected freedoms are called your civil liberties. So why was this do not list so important? Remember the big fight between the Federalists, who loved the new Constitution, and the Anti-Federalists, who feared it? The Anti-Federalists were terrified that the new national government would be just as bad as the British king they had just fought. They said, "We are not signing this unless you add a list of our rights." To get the Constitution ratified, the Federalists had to make a deal. James Madison, who originally thought a Bill of Rights was unnecessary, took on the job. He wrote a list of proposals, and the states ratified the first 10. This Bill of Rights was the compromise that sealed the deal for the new nation. You'll hear two terms, civil liberties and civil rights. They sound the same, but they're different. Civil liberties are the do not list for government. They are the freedoms from government interference. Think of them as a stop sign telling the government, "Stop, you can't come in here." That's the Bill of Rights. The First Amendment is the heavyweight champion of the Bill of Rights. It's so important, they put it first. It's not just one right. It's a bundle deal of 5 of the most basic freedoms we have. It protects your freedom to believe what you want, religion, say what you want, speech, publish what you want, press, gather how you want, assembly, and complain about what you want, petition. Without these 5 freedoms, a government by the people couldn't even exist. Let's break down freedom of religion. It has 2 parts. The Establishment Clause means the government can't create a church of the United States. It can't force you to go to church, and it can't use tax money to support one religion over another. The Free Exercise Clause is the other side of the coin. It says the government can't stop you from practicing your religion. Together, these 2 clauses build what Thomas Jefferson called a wall of separation between church and state. Freedom of speech is probably the most famous right we have. It means the government cannot put you in jail for criticizing the president or for sharing an opinion that politicians don't like. It even includes symbolic speech, actions that express an idea, like wearing a protest t-shirt or kneeling during the national anthem. The most important and often hardest part of free speech is that it is designed to protect speech that you hate. Anyone can support popular speech. The First Amendment is a test of whether we will protect the speech we find offensive. But this right is not a superpower. It has limits. The First Amendment protects you from the government, but it doesn't protect you from the consequences of your speech. For example, your school or your boss can have rules about what you say, and you can't use your speech to harm others. You can't libel someone, write lies to ruin their reputation, or slander them, speak those lies. You can't incite a riot. And as Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes said, you can't falsely shout fire in a theater and cause a panic. Your freedom ends where someone else's rights begin. Freedom of the press is very similar to free speech, but it applies to publishing and media. This right allows newspapers, TV news, websites, and even bloggers to report on what the government is doing without fear. They are the watchdog. If the president is doing something corrupt, the press has the right to expose it. The government is not allowed to use prior restraint, which means they can't block a story before it gets published. The last 2 are action rights. Freedom of assembly is your right to gather in a group as long as it's peaceful. This is what protects protests, parades, and public rallies. Freedom of petition is your right to complain to the government and ask for a change. When you sign an online petition, write a letter to your senator, or organize a protest, you are using these First Amendment rights. The Second Amendment is one of the most controversial. The text talks about two things: a well-regulated militia and the right of the people to keep and bear arms. For centuries, Americans argued over what this meant. Does it only protect the right of a state to have a militia, like the National Guard? In 2008, in a case called District of Columbia versus Heller, the Supreme Court made a final ruling. It decided that the Second Amendment does protect an individual's right to own a firearm for things like self-defense, separate from any service in a militia. The Third Amendment is the one you hear about the least, but it was super important to the founders. Before the Revolution, British soldiers would just show up at colonists' homes and demand food and a bed. The colonists hated this. This amendment says the government can never force you to house soldiers in your home in peacetime. While it seems outdated, it's a powerful statement about the right to be left alone in your own home. The Fourth Amendment is one of your most important privacy protections. It stops the government from unreasonable searches and seizures. This means the police can't just randomly search you, pull your car apart, or break down your door to search your house just because they have a hunch. This right covers your person, houses, papers, and effects, which today, courts have ruled also includes your cell phone. The Fifth Amendment is the Don't Get Railroaded Amendment. It's a bundle of rights for people accused of a crime. A grand jury has to look at the evidence first. You can't be tried for the same crime twice, double jeopardy. And the most famous part, you have the right not to incriminate yourself. This is why you hear people in movies say, "I plead the Fifth." It means, I am exercising my right to remain silent. The Fifth Amendment also gives us two other huge concepts. Due process is a big one. It's a promise that the government will follow all the rules and be fair. They can't just skip steps. They have to respect all your legal rights. And eminent domain is the government's power to take private land for public use, like a park or a highway. But the Fifth Amendment says if they do, they must pay you a just compensation, a fair price for your property. If you are formally charged with a crime, the Sixth Amendment kicks in. This is your fair trial checklist. It guarantees that your trial will be speedy, so they can't leave you in jail for 10 years, and public, so they can't try you in secret. You get an impartial jury of your peers. And, most importantly, you have the right to an attorney. If you can't afford a lawyer, the government must provide one for you. This comes from the famous case Gideon versus Wainwright. The Seventh Amendment is the only one that deals with civil cases. A civil case isn't about crime. It's a dispute between two people or companies, usually about money. For example, if you sue someone because they crashed into your car and won't pay for the damage, this amendment just guarantees that you can have a jury in a civil case, not just a judge, as long as the dispute is over a certain amount of money. The Eighth Amendment is about what happens after you're found guilty. It has two parts. First, no excessive bail. Bail is the money you pay to get out of jail before your trial. This says the judge can't set your bail at an impossible number, like $1 billion for shoplifting. Second, no cruel or unusual punishment. This means the government can't torture you. This is the amendment at the heart of the national debate over whether the death penalty is cruel and unusual. Bye. The Ninth Amendment is my favorite. It's the etc. or safety net amendment. The founders were worried, what if we forgot one? The Ninth Amendment says, just because we listed all these rights in the Bill of Rights, it doesn't mean those are the only rights that people have. This amendment is used to protect all the other rights not spelled out in the Constitution, like your fundamental right to privacy. And finally, the 10th Amendment. This amendment is all about federalism and the states' rights debate. It's a simple rule. If the Constitution didn't give a specific power to the federal government, like running elections, and it didn't ban the states from doing it, then that power is reserved for the states, or for the people themselves. This is why states are in charge of things like education, driver's licenses, and marriage laws.